Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is David and I'm known on the internet as Unity Freedom. So we'll start out in 2026 and oh, by the way, Happy New Year first. We'll start in 2026 to talk about the topic of wisdom. So I'd like to start the topic with what the Buddha says, the beginner's mind, and how you can overcome the challenges in 2026 by embracing the beginner's mind. So without further ado, I'll come back after this short introduction. Hi, welcome back. So today I will be talking about Buddha's beginner's mind. And why is it so important in 2026? Because in 2026 you will see the continuation of people abusing power, but in 2026 it will be increased in relationship through the wisdom of how these people use the power to abuse the power using false wisdom, or to be more creative using divine wisdom. And how do you actually know that you're not abusing the power? And in 2026, you will learn that the wisdom part is something that you use to cross-check the power that you use. Either you use it to create something or you use it to abuse. So without going further about how I'm going to explain this about the beginner's mind, I'll tell you a story first, and then after I finish telling my own story about my experiences of abusing power and using the divine wisdom to get me out of the abuse of power. And then from there, I think that it will be more helpful for many of you listeners out there to understand why the beginner's mind is really important and why the Buddha says that before you begin the path of non-attachment, you begin with the beginner's mind. And in Christianity, Jesus talked about the Christ mind, and he also talked about only a child can go into the kingdom of God. Only if you have a mind of the child that you can go into the kingdom of God. Now, the beginner's mind and the mind of the child is not meant to be like you turn back into a little child, like you act like you're an infant or you're being childish. But really it's about being innocent. Being innocent and being willing to make mistakes, willing to admit that you're wrong, and also willing not to be an expert in any field. Like you fully surrender, are willing to be an expert in any field. Because the knowledge that you get is not final. It's not the ultimate truth. The knowledge you get from intellectual knowledge on this material world, or the divine knowledge that you get from your higher self, from your I Am Presence, or from the Ascended Masters, or the higher spiritual beings, they are not the final truth. They're just progressive revelation that they come as your level of consciousness rises, more new knowledge comes through. So, we'll start with me telling a story about my childhood. So when I was young, one of the interests that I have in me is electronics, computers actually. So, I mean, when I was a young kid, I knew that I saw the potential for computers. And even in the mid-80s when I was young, I knew that computers will become a bigger part of society. Everybody was dismissing. I remember when I was a young kid, I was telling my dad, my mom, and pretty much all the adults that I would see computers as being part of our life because I saw the potential of that. And so because I saw the potential of that, I wanted to get into it. And how do I get into it? Is to have hands-on experience working with computers. So me, when I was brought up, even though my family, my dad was somewhat wealthy, he has this old school mindset that, you got to work for everything that you want. Work for it. Like find a job, save the money, and then realize your dream by saving enough money to buy whatever you want. So, of course, when I was a kid, computers were very expensive at the time, and it took me a long time to save up enough money for me to buy a computer. And at the time, there was a company called Atari. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Atari, Atari was a game manufacturer of consoles. Like if you research the internet about Atari, the famous game that Atari ever put out first was Pong. So I remember playing Pong when I was at the doctor's office. There was this machine, a table version of Pong, and I was mesmerized by it. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Again, not only I didn't waste my time like waiting for the doctors to see me, I just saw this game and I was really intrigued by it. And of course, other patients were playing the game. I got a chance to play the game Pong, and I thought, oh, this is the game I want. I want to have the same game at home. And of course, I asked my dad about it. Can you buy me a game Pong for Atari? And at the time, there was this Atari console that I really wanted to buy. And finally, my dad sort of broke down because I was nagging him. So he bought me a console. And of course, later on, I buy games to play with it. And eventually, I wanted a real computer. And the only computer brand name that I felt familiar with it was Atari, because I had a game console made by Atari. And at the time, Atari had this 16-bit computer. For $1,000, for $999, you can get a computer with a disk drive and a monitor. Well, monitor is the television, but eventually I saved that up to get a color monitor. But then my dad chipped in a little bit to subsidize the purchase. But that was the computer that I could afford, because any other computers like Commodore Amiga, Apple Macintosh, even IBM PC were pretty much out of reach. So that was the only affordable computer that I could afford. Being a kid, working for McDonald's, working assembly line for like an electronics firm, putting in like adapter sockets for those for those lights. I just couldn't make enough to buy a better computer. So Atari was something that I can resonate with, and I bought it. So fast forward a few years later, I became attached to the brand name. Many things that the computer has, like the accessories that I couldn't afford, I went online. At the time, there wasn't any internet, so you had to use a phone. And there's a little device called a modem that you call a number and you get online through what is called the Bulletin Board Service, the BBS. And in that forum service, there are many other people that have the same interests. And I gradually, I wanted to have a disk drive, another disk drive for my Atari, and I would download the blueprints for the circuit boards, the connection, and so forth. So I was pretty resourceful. I really liked the hands-on experience, like putting together the disk drive, all the other accessories for my Atari. Mind you, I didn't have enough money to buy the actual devices, so I had to cobble up together like little circuit boards here and there, so I can get something similar to what you can buy from retail. But I put it together as a project. Well, suffice it to say, I developed an attachment, a very strong attachment to Atari. Like my identity, I put my identity and attached it to Atari. And I started to notice that in myself, at the time I didn't know what's going on, but I started to notice that whenever people criticized Atari, I would come into its defense as though they're not really attacking me, but I felt that they're attacking me. So I would engage in online debates. At the time, because there's no internet, I had to keep dialing the phone. And of course, I spent so much time on the phone. And then my parents say, you got to get your own phone line because you're really hogging up the phone. That's how much time I spent on the phone with my computer. So I got an extra line. And at that time, I already got a job working for a Japanese company with digital imaging, so I was able to make more money, and I could afford a monthly payment, a phone line, and a monthly payment for that. So I spent quite a bit of time online, but most of the time I noticed I was just arguing with people, like defending the Atari is a great computer. Oh, you just don't know what I know. So like what I feel, like I am the expert. I am the foremost expert of the Atari because, a lot of things the accessories that I couldn't afford, I built it myself. So I have a lot of in-depth experience, electronics experience. And many of the people who talk online, they don't have experience. They don't have the actual physical experience. What they did was they create a mental image in their mind about that particular experience of how to put together the project, the electronics project, but they never actually put it together. So of course I sense that they're lying. I mean, hey, you didn't put it together, but you made it up that you did. Because I put it together, I know the process. I know the intricate steps, but you don't even know the intricate steps, and then you claim that you have put it together. So of course, I started doing that, like arguing with these people, and then it gradually sort of manifested into arguing about pretty much everything, because it felt like people are not putting justice, like fairness, into Atari, because they're putting Atari, oh, it's a game machine, oh, it's not a serious computer, oh, so whoever who owns an Atari, well, because they can't afford a Mac, an Apple computer, they can't afford an IBM PC, oh, that's why. So I felt really offended. And in that offense, I become angrier and angrier. And even offline, I would sit on a table, and in my mind, I would continue to think like a hamster wheel, what's the best next argument I can defeat? What's the best next infallible truth I can put on the internet so they cannot deny the truth? And I was like eating and thinking the next answer in my mind. It's kind of funny because like I couldn't have enough peace, any peace in my mind. It's like a constant program running in my mind that I wanted to impart this wisdom, this truth, so they would accept my truth. And of course I was happy. I'm ready. After I finish my dinner, boom, I go right into my computer and then log on online again. I type in my answers, and I was like proud. Yeah, this time they will accept my truth. They will no longer have the ability to argue. But of course, what happened next? Within like 30 minutes, they're doing the same thing. They come back with another infallible truth. They say, no, David, you're wrong. What you said is wrong. Let me educate you. You know, Apple Macintosh is this, IBM PC is that. And then of course, it just goes on and on and on. Now fast forward a couple of years later, the market share of Atari starts to dwindle, because really Apple Macintosh and IBM PC are starting to gain market share. They're starting to become the standard of computing as we know today. So some of us use Apple, some of us use IBM, and of course in the phone, some of us use Android and some of us use iPhone. But at the time, I was defending Atari. Even when the market share is dwindling, I remember I also belonged to the user group. And I felt really special because I'm one of the experts in a user group that sort of like people call me a cheerleader. I was really good at cheerleading, like convincing people, stick with Atari. Don't listen to all these other, naysayers, doomsayers, or what they say, like Atari is dying or whatnot. Listen to me. I know Atari is not dying. It's just a temporary setback with Atari. But of course, at that time, I wasn't willing to accept the truth because I was knee deep into my association attachment with Atari that I felt I needed to defend it. It's like life and death. And I remember even in user groups, I would go up there, do some public speaking, trying to convince the user group of people that whatever you heard about Atari dying and is going to be replaced by Apple and IBM are all false. They're not true. So I took in the same lies that some of the other Atari gurus were saying. So I just kept repeating the same lies, and of course when you keep repeating the same thing, you become a true believer because the more you repeat, the more you think it's true. But of course that's not true. But suffice to say, finally, when my job asked me to get an Apple, because in my job there is a program that I need to use that is only available with Apple. And I was reluctant at first because you know what, when I switch to Apple, it means everything I did was wrong. Everything I believed that Atari was not dying was wrong. I was basically delusional on my own thoughts that Atari will survive, even though in reality it is dying and it's dead, of course, as we know today. But at the time I was hoping that it will survive, the company will survive. So I was what you can call it delusional. I was young, was delusional that everything was true, that Atari will survive, and I was not willing to accept the fact that it's okay. Everything that I have accepted as the truth is in the mind. It's really in the mind. The bad people, which is the Apple and the IBM PC people who are telling me you should give up Atari because it's dying, they're not bad people. But I label them as bad because they're trying to show me reality. When they're trying to show me reality that I refuse, then what do? I label them as bad people. Because bad people are the ones that I believe were trying to change me. But they're not really bad people. They're just trying to tell me the reality of the fact that IBM PC, right now clone, or Windows PC, and Apple will be the future. But I was not willing to accept that. So it took me a while to ponder around. And it's interesting that when I was pondering around, when I was eating my lunch or my dinner, of course my brain is working, then something came to me. Something came to me, that sense of the mind, the thought. A little thought came to me, a very peaceful thought came to me. David, why don't you go to Computer City and try it out? There was this thought. Computer City was a company that was selling all different kinds of computers, just like Best Buy of today. And they have many computers on demo that you can try it out. But at the time, I was reluctant, which is funny, isn't it? I mean, I was so reluctant to go into Computer City to try out an Apple computer. Because by doing so, I felt I will die. Like really, literally, I was so nervous. So there was like this sense in me that, man, if I go to Computer City, everything I believe is a lie. But isn't it really ridiculous because it's just in the mind? In reality, what's the problem if you made a mistake? All you believe in a particular religion or particular ideology is just an ideology. It's just a thought. It's not even true or real. It can change. But at the time, I've taken Atari as an ideology, as a religion. And I could not move. Even it has nothing to do with God. It's just everything to do with the computer. But I wasn't willing to move an inch to go to Computer City to see an Apple computer, to play it. But one day, I was just watching a movie because at the time there was a theater next door, and adjacent to that was Computer City. So after I finished watching a movie, then I feel the urge to, spend some time, waste my time before I head back for dinner. And I was thinking, okay, well, let's go to Computer City and see my Atari computer. Because see, I still want to see an Atari computer. But when I went to Computer City, I couldn't find one. Because they say they don't carry that particular brand because the market share is just not enough to them to justify carrying a brand. and having an open demo with it. But then there sits an Apple Macintosh computer. And the first thing I saw was, wow, this is something different. And then when I played with it, I felt like this is a more advanced computer than my Atari. There's so many things you can do with it. And as I play more and more, I started to realize that the physical experience of a different computer, that the people that have been telling me, why I call them or label them as bad people who tried to change my mind, were in fact telling the truth. That computer was more advanced, has more features, more support for software. And when I was using it, I said, okay, I have no other, it took me a while to process it, but then I realized, damn, shit, I was wrong. I was so wrong to even support this, to even fall into this ideology that Atari was the best computer for the lifetime. But anyways, the next day or two, I went to check my bank account, and I realized, oh yeah, I have enough money to buy because I was saving up for a new computer. It was actually for another Atari computer, but I decided, okay, time to move on and buy a Mac computer. And so I did. That was the time that I changed. It was just one day I decided to surrender myself and to try out a new experience, a new computer, and see how it is. Instead of just listening to other Atari users telling me, oh, don't touch the Apple computer, oh, don't touch a IBM PC. Yeah, they're no good. Trust me, I tried it before and it was no good. Atari is better. I trusted those people. And I was repeating the same talking points from those people. But I never actually tried it myself, how other computers work and behave. And when I tried it, of course, my experience tells me that, hey, the reality tells me that this computer is better than my Atari. But it was something in me that really allowed me to embrace this new change. And so this something in me is what I called the beginner's mind. Because if you think about it, I went back to the beginning. My mind went back to the beginning. Like I pushed a reset button and I put away Atari, the ideology of Atari, the belief, my years of experience with a computer, and I embrace being a beginner, like somebody who have no experience of computers, completely fresh, new, and just sit in front of a computer, in this case an Apple. And embracing the beginner's mind, I see something new. I see the reality of what that computer was demonstrating to me. For the first time that I experienced it, I realized, oh yeah, I was wrong for believing other people's experience or their description of that experience, their opinions, that was true. But then when I was using it with the beginner's mind, and I realized that it was not anything close to what those people were saying. So I've taken and accepted a lie. So the beginner's mind allows you first to reset yourself, to step back, and then to see more than one thing. Now the ego or the serpentine mind or the duality mind, you see in the intellectual mind, when you're attached to a particular ideology, to a particular belief. Like in this case, my Atari, I only see Atari. And everything else have to conform to Atari. And everything else is a comparison to Atari. So that's what my mindset was looking at. I only want conformity. And in the user group, people were asking me, David, what do you think about the Mac? You know, people saying that the Mac was better than the Atari, or the IBM PC had more software and support than Atari, has more future proofing than Atari. But of course, in my mind, I was comparing Atari and IBM PC or Windows PC and the Apple. And me comparing, I would compare Atari as being the better computer than the PC or the Mac. Because in my mind, I do not see diversity. I cannot see a diversity. I only see conformity and I only see one thing, which is Atari. And that's the trap that I was in. I was in this trap. And if it wasn't for a little voice in me to tell me to go to Computer City, to look, open up your horizons and look at the other computers, play with them, see, have the experience with all these computers. Look at the diverse selections of computers, play with them, have the experience, and then formulate a new experience. If it wasn't that voice, that small voice that allowed me to see something other than Atari, I would still be Atari, and I would use the money to buy a new Atari, but of course I would waste my money because that computer became outdated and obsolete in just a few short years. Whereas my new purchase, the Apple Macintosh, lasted me 5 to 7 years. If I would have bought the latest Atari, it would have been outdated and obsolete in about 1 or 2 years. And I couldn't use the software that I need at work. So it was that little voice in me that tells me that, hey, you need to consider something other than the computer you think is the greatest. So one of the things in 2026 is that in 2026, it is about wisdom. It is about how do you discern wisdom? False wisdom as opposed to true wisdom? But isn't that both are like opposites? True and false wisdom? Or are you willing to go beyond the box? You see, wisdom, when you have something like an ideology or belief you're attached to, then you cannot have a beginner's mind because you have an ideology. It can either be true or false. So you're comparing between the two. So even though, you hear something, how do you discern something that you hear? Of course, you would compare whatever you hear against your own standard that you have taken in. Like at the time when I was with that mindset, I've taken in the standard that everything revolves around Atari. Anything else is not true. But when I have let go of that temporarily by going into Computer City, trying out other computers, then I'm no longer comparing. I compared, of course, to Atari, and then how limited my computer was compared to the other computers, other platforms. But I also expanded my mind. I could see, oh, this computer can do much more things. So in the beginner's mind, you're not really comparing anymore. You're really seeing a lot of diverse options, choices that are much more than just two choices in the comparative mind, which is your intellectual mind. Because once you take on a belief, when you take on a certain belief, you're in the comparative mode. You're comparing between two. You cannot see the reality. Like for example, today we hear the news about the shooting in Minnesota, about the shooting of the woman in the van, in the minivan, trying to escape from ICE agents. And before formal, thorough investigation, already certain people condemn the woman as being a domestic terrorist. But there is no investigation. It's that immediate accusation without any physical proof. It's the same as when I was with Atari, when I had this idolatry with this Atari brand. Anything I see, immediately I accused it as being, that computer is wrong, that computer is no good, but there is no formal investigative work to prove that the computer is not as good as my Atari. And this is what happens when you're in this kind of mindset, is that you're only blaming certain things, but you don't see all the other diverse options, all the other diverse opportunities of wisdom, divine wisdom, that are available for you to tap into. Just like when I heard the voice that, hey, check out Computer City. Try it out. See how it goes. If I didn't have that option, just like right now, in the Minnesota shooting of ICE agent shooting the woman and killing the woman, without any investigation, you just make the accusation. That's how the mind works. If it's trapped in a duality consciousness, that you are only seeing two things. She's either a good person or she's a bad person. And in this case, it's quickly determined by certain individuals that she's a bad person without any investigative work. So this is what you're going to see in 2026, is that a lot of people are going to be parading with information. I have the ultimate information, I have the ultimate truth. And they will just keep parading that. They are the experts, they know everything. But what they're just basically saying is just repeating the same talking points, promoting a certain ideology, a certain belief. And in order for you to promote a certain belief and a certain ideology, you have to maintain a certain standard. And then using that standard, you compare with other things that you see in reality. So basically, you're denying reality because you have upheld the standard as being real. Everything else is not real. The standard in you is real. But didn't I just say that it's only real in your mind? It's only real that you think it is real. But if you have experienced an alternative, a diverse options of wisdom that tells you there is something else beyond this trap, that there's reality behind the trap that you're in, then having the beginner's mind allows you to step back. Because then you step back from this mind that compares things that have to conform to a certain standard to a mind that allows you to be open to anything, to physical facts, to divine wisdom, to progressive revelation from the higher source, from the ascended masters. And it's always like they're always there. But if you close down that, if you don't embrace that beginner's mind and say, well, I'm always right because I'm an expert. I don't need anyone to tell me otherwise. I know Achari is the best brand. It will last forever. But this is a delusion that I was carrying when I was a young kid. Because I believe that you can actually program other people to believe in your delusion. As long as other people believe in my delusion of Achari, then my delusion is right. Because the numbers really work, right? Because if one person believed in a delusion, it's kind of quasi-real. But if 10 people, 100 people believe in your same delusion, then you actually believe that it's not a delusion. So the numbers game really count. And I was, at the time, doing exactly the same as what you see with the current president of the United States. Is that as long as you have enough people supporting a certain delusion, you believe it's true. But we all have this beginner's mind that we can step back. We can actually step back and ask many important questions. What if somebody says it's true? And this is actually a safety mechanism built in us. Now we have what is called a serpentine logic, where we can believe everything is true. We'll make it believe everything is true. But the opposite end of that is that it creates doubt. Now, some people are very good at projecting lies by creating doubt, and then making you believe that whatever they say is the ultimate truth. But the same doubt that converts you into believing a certain lie can also work for you, because the same doubt can get you to ask very important questions from a beginner's mind perspective. Because what if what I believe in my mind is not true? What if I conduct my own investigation? I do my own research to prove that maybe what I hold on to in my mind is not the truth. It's something in my mind. All these things about what I believe is not the truth. And when you start asking these questions, then you can put checks and balances in your use of power. Because when you use your power to do many things, you can abuse power because there's no checks and balances to check whether you are abusing power or you're not. Like me, there's a little voice that causes me to doubt. Maybe I was abusing too much power, trying to convince other people that Atari will survive. And this voice allows me to look at other computers, and then I realize I was abusing power, trying to convince other people that Atari will survive. But this is, this is an honest experience. I'm not here to blame everyone who have been through this themselves, because I'm sure that everyone has similar experiences that, you fell for this abuse of power. You have this power, you don't know whether you're abusing it, but then you realize you were abusing power because you have checks and balances using your wisdom to realize, yes, you have taken a certain lie and you have used the power to abuse based on that lie. But as long as you can have the beginner's mind to come back and say, hey, I was just taken by someone else's lie. And the reason is because once I took a lie, if I didn't want to admit that I was wrong by taking in the lie, then I will continue promoting the lie. And if I am setting myself up as an expert, then I will never admit that I was lying or promoting the lie. But the beginner's mind is really a beginner's mind. Because what is the essence of a beginner's mind? When Buddha says, seek for the beginner's mind. The beginner's mind is the need for you to fully surrender the willingness to be right. That's the first. And the second is the need to fully surrender your need to be an expert. Because you're not the only one expressing. Remember what I said about diversity? We're all expressing aspects of the same spirit, which is God. It's just that when we experience spirit, we take in that experience and put it into words. But this is just one aspect of the spirit. You have 8 billion people maybe experiencing the same spirit. So there will be 8 billion expressions of the same spirit. And neither any of the 8 billion expressions are wrong. They're just different expressions of the same spirit. Just like Atari. When I took on Atari, it's just my expression of Atari. And then, but Atari is a brand. What I have taken on is that it should be just an experience of using a computer. Any brand of computer is a computer. Atari is a brand of computers. Apple is. IBM PC and now Windows clone are just expressions of different computers. But when you're expressing what you use, what you do with your computer, it's just your experience that is being expressed in words about your experience with a computer. Other person also using another different brand of computers and speaking the same thing. So what is there to argue? What is there to put people down? Only if you think that you have the ultimate expression. Only if you have the ultimate and the truth ideology or belief that your belief is the right one. But that's not the beginner's mind, right? The beginner's mind doesn't think that I have the right, I have the ultimate belief, or that I have the ultimate experience. I will always have an experience through the beginner's mind. So I will always experience new things, new experiences, new wisdom. So even if I taken on a new wisdom from my presence, from my higher self, or from the Ascended Masters, from the higher spiritual guides, if I raise my level of consciousness, I get something new. So I will continue receiving new information. But how do I get new wisdom if I say, no, I'm not willing to be a beginner. I'm the expert. I don't need to be a beginner. Don't tell me the things, don't patronize me, how experts do. Don't patronize me. about your new ideas and so forth, because I am the expert. You just don't know what you're talking about. So how do you learn? How do you learn new things? How do you discern what are lies or what divine wisdom? Because if you're comparing lies with divine wisdom, you're going to embrace a lie. You're not embracing divine wisdom. Even though divine wisdom can and will help you transcend the lies, the trap that you're in, the duality trap that you're in. Just like that one divine wisdom on telling me to go to Computer City, I went there and whoa, new ideas all start coming in. So this is something for you to contemplate in this year 2026. When you see all the people parading with their expert opinion in the stock market, in the bond market, in the precious metals, in the real estate market, you know, all the people parading their wisdom. Oh, I know this. Oh, I know the stock market will crash. Oh, I know the real estate market will crash. I know this. I know that. I know how to predict who's going to die. Use that as a entertainment by you going in and embracing your beginner's mind and see what you see of those people. You know, right now I'm looking and listening to CNN and all these shows, TV shows and podcasts. I was just looking at people and just finding it amusing because they're just parading all these ideologies, all these mental images. They're not true. But this is 2026, where the energy and the light through the crown chakra is pushing all this man-made wisdom out in the open for you to see and for you to discern. Are you going to embrace this, or are you going to walk away and embrace the beginner's mind and then embrace the divine wisdom from your I Am Presence, from your higher self, or from the Ascended Masters and the higher spiritual beings? And this is the choice that you need to make in 2026. I have made it, but will you? Okay, thank you for listening to my talks. And as usual, please subscribe to my channel. And thank you for your patience for listening to my rather long talk. I hope that you find that the information I shared is useful for you. I have many other things to share in the coming months. So please stay tuned and subscribe to my channel for the most updated podcast that I will post on this channel. Until then, this is David saying goodbye and welcome to 2026.